The first rifle shot from the James gang missed Vance Quill's head by a mere 2 inches, splintering the post behind him as he dove for cover behind the water trough on Main Street in Piñon, New Mexico. The year was 1878, and Vance, once the most promising young rancher in the territory, now found himself a widower at 32, with nothing but his sprawling ranch and an 8-year-old daughter who'd already seen too much heartache for her tender years. "Papa, get down!" Lily screamed from the general store's porch, where she'd been waiting with Mrs. Peterson, clutching her new ribbons as bullets flew. Vance's heart lurched at the sound of his daughter's voice, too close to danger. 4 years since his beloved wife Martha had died in childbirth along with their son, and still the thought of losing Lily, too, paralyzed him with fear. Sheriff Willis burst from his office, shotgun in hand. "Quill, they're heading for the bank." With practiced precision, Vance pulled his Colt revolver and fired twice, hitting one of the bandits in the shoulder. The man tumbled from his horse, cursing loudly as his companions wheeled their mounts around and galloped away in a cloud of dust, their planned robbery thwarted before it began. "You still shoot straight as an arrow," Sheriff Willis said, approaching as the danger passed. "Army teach you that?" "Been a long time since I wore that blue uniform," Vance replied, holstering his gun. His attention was already fixed on Lily, who ran toward him with tears streaming down her face. "Papa!" She collided with his legs, wrapping her arms around him. "It's all right, sweetheart," he soothed, kneeling to her level. "Those bad men are gone now." Mrs. Peterson huffed as she approached, her considerable bulk moving with surprising grace despite her size. At 40 years old, Hannah Thompson now, Peterson had been widowed just last year when her husband Roger died from pneumonia. She'd been a fixture in Piñon for only 2 years, but her bakery had quickly become the heart of the small community. "Land sakes, Mr. Quill, you could have been killed," Hannah exclaimed, pressing a handkerchief to her flushed face. Her ample figure strained against her modest dress, but her warm brown eyes showed genuine concern. "Just another day in Piñon," Vance said with a tight smile. Despite his casual tone, his hands still trembled slightly. "Thank you for watching Lily." "It was my pleasure." Hannah smiled warmly at the little girl. "She's been helping me with the cherry pies today. Quite the little baker you're raising." Lily beamed up at her father. "Mrs. Peterson let me crimp the edges, Papa, and she says I can come back tomorrow to help with the apple ones." Vance nodded politely. "That's mighty kind of you, Mrs. Peterson, but Lily and I should be heading back to the ranch. Cattle won't feed themselves." "Of course." Hannah smiled, though something wistful flickered in her expression. "But perhaps you could both come for Sunday dinner after church. I always make too much food for just myself." Before Vance could formulate a polite refusal, Lily jumped in excitedly. "Can we, Papa? Please? Mrs. Peterson makes the best pies in the whole territory." Looking into his daughter's pleading eyes, Vance couldn't find it in his heart to disappoint her. "I suppose we could if Mrs. Peterson doesn't mind a couple of ranch folk at her table." Hannah's face brightened. "I would be delighted. 3 o'clock?" As they headed home to the Quarter Circle Q ranch that afternoon, Vance couldn't help but notice his daughter's unusual silence. The sprawling landscape stretched around them, the Sangre de Cristo Mountains purple in the distance, piñon pines dotting the hills leading to their ranch house. "Something on your mind, Pumpkin?" he finally asked as they approached the ranch gate. Lily fidgeted with her new hair ribbons. "Papa, do you like Mrs. Peterson?" Vance frowned slightly. "She seems like a fine lady. Makes good pies, from what I hear." "The best pies," Lily corrected emphatically. "And she tells the funniest stories, and she smells like cinnamon. And she never gets cross when I ask questions." "Is that so?" Vance chuckled, guiding their wagon toward the barn. "And she gets sad sometimes, just like you do," Lily added quietly, "when she thinks no one's looking." Vance's smile faded. He sometimes forgot how perceptive children could be. "Well, she lost her husband. That's a hard thing." "Like you lost Mama," Lily said with the directness of childhood. "Papa, why don't you and Mrs. Peterson get married? Then she wouldn't be sad anymore, and you wouldn't be either." Vance nearly pulled the wagon to a halt in shock. "Lily Quill, that's not something a little girl should be worrying about." "But Papa, "That's enough," he said, more sharply than intended. Seeing her crestfallen expression, he softened his tone. "Marriage is complicated, sweetie. It's not just about being sad and making pies." Lily fell silent, but the determined set of her jaw told Vance this wouldn't be the last he'd hear on the subject. Sunday dinner at Hannah Peterson's modest home behind her bakery proved to be a more pleasant affair than Vance had anticipated. The aroma of roast beef, fresh bread, and spices filled the cozy dining room, and Hannah moved efficiently despite her size, serving generous portions with a warm smile. "This is delicious, Mrs. Peterson," Vance said, genuinely impressed. "Please call me Hannah," she replied, her cheeks pinking slightly. "And thank you. I've always found comfort in feeding people." As the meal progressed, Vance found himself relaxing for the first time in years. Hannah was an engaging conversationalist, well-read despite her lack of formal education, and she drew Lily out of her shell with gentle questions about her interests. When the little girl mentioned her struggles with arithmetic, Hannah immediately offered to help. "I kept all the books for my husband's freight business," she explained. "Numbers and I have always gotten along famously." "Mrs. Peterson makes figures dance, Papa," Lily said admiringly. "She showed me at the bakery." After dinner, when Hannah brought out a perfect apple pie, golden and fragrant, Lily gave her father a significant look. "Didn't I tell you, Papa? The best pies in the territory." "You weren't exaggerating," Vance admitted after his first bite. Later, as Hannah served coffee while Lily played with a kitten in the corner, Vance found himself studying his hostess. She was certainly not what anyone would call beautiful in the conventional sense. Her face was round, her figure more than ample, and she moved with the careful deliberation of someone accustomed to navigating a world not designed for her size. But her eyes were kind, her smile genuine, and her hands, though work-roughened, moved with grace and purpose. "I hope you'll come again," Hannah said as they prepared to leave. "Perhaps next Sunday?" Before Vance could respond, Lily piped up, "Can Mrs. Peterson come to our ranch instead? I want to show her my chickens and buttercup." Hannah looked uncertain. "I wouldn't want to impose." "Nonsense," Vance heard himself saying. "It's only fair. You fed us well. We should return the favor." The smile that lit Hannah's face made something stir in Vance's chest, something he'd thought long buried with Martha. The following weeks established a pattern. Sunday dinners alternated between Hannah's home and the quarter-circle queue. Lily spent more time at the bakery, learning to make bread and pies under Hannah's patient guidance, and Vance found himself making more trips to town than strictly necessary, often timing his arrivals to coincide with the bakery's quieter moments. "You should marry her, Papa," Lily declared one evening as Vance tucked her into bed, a month into this new routine. Vance sighed. "Lily, we've talked about this. But you smile when you talk about her, and yesterday, when you thought I wasn't looking, you touched her hand on purpose." Vance felt heat rise to his face. "It's not that simple, Pumpkin." "Why not?" Lily persisted. "Is it because she's fat?" "Lily," Vance scolded, shocked by her bluntness, "that's not a kind word to use." "But Mrs. Peterson told me herself that she's fat, and that's just how God made her," Lily said innocently. "She said some people think it's bad, but she doesn't mind because being plump means you're good at cooking and have a warm lap for little ones." Despite himself, Vance smiled. That sounded exactly like something Hannah would say. "Mrs. Peterson is a fine woman," he said carefully. "But marriage is a big step, and both people need to want it." "She wants it," Lily said confidently. "I can tell." Vance tucked the blanket around her. "Time for sleep, little matchmaker. Good night." But as he walked to his own room, Vance couldn't dismiss his daughter's words so easily. Did Hannah harbor feelings for him? The thought was not unwelcome, he realized with surprise. In fact, the idea of Hannah in his home permanently, of her laughter filling the rooms, of her warm presence beside him at night, it stirred something long dormant within him. The question haunted him through the week, making him distracted during ranch work. Even his foreman, Miguel, noticed. "Boss, you just told me to move the same herd twice," Miguel pointed out, amusement in his dark eyes. Something on your mind? Vance rubbed the back of his neck. Just thinking. About the widow with the bakery? Miguel asked shrewdly. Vance's head snapped up. What makes you say that? Miguel shrugged. The whole town's talking. They say she's sweet on you and little Lily's trying to make a match. The whole town? Vance groaned. Small towns, boss. No secrets. Miguel hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, Mrs. Peterson is a good woman. My Carlita says she gives day-old bread to the poor families without making a fuss about it, and she stood up to that traveling salesman who was cheating the Mexican families with his miracle cure. I didn't know that, Vance said thoughtfully. Some men might mind her size, Miguel continued carefully, but a wise man knows that in harsh country, a woman with some substance is a blessing. My grandmother used to say, skinny cooks can't be trusted. Vance laughed despite himself. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. The wisest, Miguel agreed. She also said, a man who finds love twice is doubly blessed. Just something to consider, boss. The conversation stayed with Vance, especially when Sunday came, and Hannah arrived at the ranch with not only a freshly baked pie, but also a basket of mending she'd done for Lily. I noticed her school dress was torn, Hannah explained as she handed over the neatly repaired garment. I hope you don't mind. Mind? Hannah, you didn't have to. I wanted to, she said simply. That child needs a woman's touch now and then. Something in her tone made Vance study her more closely. You're good with her. Better than I am sometimes. Hannah shook her head. Don't sell yourself short, Vance Quill. You're raising a remarkable daughter, but children need different things from different people. I'm just happy to help where I can. As they sat down to the meal, Vance had prepared a simple affair of roast chicken and vegetables, nowhere near Hannah's culinary standards. Lily dominated the conversation with tales of school and her animals. Later, while Hannah helped Lily with her arithmetic homework, Vance found himself watching them, noting the natural way they interacted, the gentle corrections Hannah offered, the pride in her eyes when Lily understood a concept. It was Martha's birthday. The realization struck him suddenly. May the 12th. He'd been so preoccupied he hadn't even remembered until this moment. Guilt washed over him, followed by a deeper realization. For the first time since her death, he'd gone a whole day without feeling that crushing weight of grief. Hannah looked up, catching his expression. Vance, are you all right? Yes, he managed. Just remembered something. Her eyes held understanding. Something about Martha. Vance blinked, surprised. How did you know? The way your face changed, she said softly. I know that look. I see it in my mirror sometimes when I think of Roger. Lily had wandered outside to check on her chickens, leaving them alone at the table. Hannah reached across, hesitating before placing her hand over his. It doesn't get easier exactly, she said, but eventually the memories bring more comfort than pain. Vance turned his hand to hold hers. How did you manage it, after Roger died? Hannah's smile was tinged with sadness. One day at a time. I threw myself into the bakery, made so many pies that first month that the whole town was eating dessert for breakfast. She laughed softly. Found that kneading dough was good for working out feelings too big for words. Martha loved to garden, Vance said, surprised at how easily the words came. After we lost her, I couldn't bear to look at her flower beds. Let them all go to weeds. Hannah squeezed his hand. Perhaps it's time to plant something new. The double meaning wasn't lost on him. Before he could respond, Lily burst back in, exclaiming about a new chick that had hatched. The moment passed, but something had shifted between them. That night, after Hannah had gone home and Lily was asleep, Vance walked out to the abandoned garden plot behind the house. In the moonlight, he could make out the overgrown beds, the fallen trellis where Martha's roses once climbed. He knelt, pulling a weed, then another. By the time he went inside, his hands were dirty, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. The next morning, Lily found him marking out the old garden boundaries. Papa, what are you doing? Thought we might plant a garden again, he said. Your mother would want her flowers to bloom. Lily's eyes widened. Can Mrs. Peterson help? She told me she grows herbs behind her bakery. Vance smiled. We can ask her. Hannah was surprised but delighted by the invitation to help restore Martha's garden. She arrived the following Saturday with seedlings, tools, and enough enthusiasm to match Lily's. I took the liberty of bringing some rosemary and lavender starts, she explained as they worked the soil together. They're hardy in this climate, and the scent is so lovely. Martha would have liked that, Vance said, finding the words didn't hurt as much as he'd expected. By midday, they'd cleared the beds and planted the first section. Hannah produced a picnic lunch from her basket fried chicken, cornbread, and of course, a cherry pie. They ate under the old cottonwood tree, Lily chattering about her plans for vegetable seeds. Mrs. Peterson says we can pickle vegetables for winter, she informed her father. She's going to teach me how. Is she now? Vance raised an eyebrow at Hannah. Hannah blushed. Only if it's all right with you, of course. I think it's a fine idea, he said. Lily should learn these things. I told her you'd say yes, Lily said triumphantly. I also told her she should marry you so she could teach me every day instead of just Sundays. Hannah gasped, her face flaming red. Lily, that's not... I never... Vance cleared his throat, embarrassment warring with amusement. Lily Quill, apologize to Mrs. Peterson right now. That was highly improper. But why? Lily looked genuinely confused. You like each other. I see how you look at her when she's not watching Papa. And Mrs. Peterson, you smile different when Papa comes to the bakery. Not your customer smile, but your special one. Hannah looked mortified, unable to meet Vance's eyes. I should go, she murmured, starting to gather her things. No, please. Vance caught her hand. Lily's being forward, but she means well. She makes the best pies, Papa, Lily persisted. And she makes you laugh. You never laughed before. Hannah finally looked up, her eyes meeting Vance's. Something passed between them, uncertainty, hope, possibility. Children do have a way of getting to the heart of things, Vance said quietly, though their timing leaves something to be desired. A small smile tugged at Hannah's lips. Roger always said I was transparent as glass. Seems he was right. Stay, Vance said, still holding her hand. Please, we have more planting to do, and I'd like you to stay. Later, after Lily had been sent inside to wash up, Vance and Hannah found themselves alone in the newly planted garden. The spring air was sweet, the afternoon sun warming the freshly turned earth. I'm sorry about Lily, Vance began. Hannah shook her head. Don't be. Children see things clearly sometimes. Is she right? He asked, gathering his courage. About how you feel. Hannah's hands twisted her apron. I care for you both. More than I should, perhaps. I know I'm not what most men would want. I'm not beautiful or slender like Martha must have been, and... Hannah, Vance interrupted gently. Martha was Martha. You're you. There's no comparison to be made, nor should there be. But surely you must see how people would talk, she persisted. Someone like you with someone like me. Someone like me, he echoed. Handsome, respected. You could have any woman in the territory. Vance stepped closer. What if I don't want any woman? What if I find myself thinking about one particular woman? One who makes my daughter smile, who brings light back into my home, who sees me not just as the rancher or the widower, but as a man. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. Vance, please don't say things you don't mean. I couldn't bear it. I've never said anything more true, he replied, taking her hands in his. I don't know when it happened exactly. Maybe it was watching you teach Lily to crimp pie crust. Maybe it was the way you remembered how I take my coffee. Or maybe it was seeing you here today, planting new life in soil that's been barren too long. He took a deep breath. What I do know is that I care for you, Hannah, deeply. And my size doesn't trouble you, she whispered. Vance smiled. There's more of you to love, and I do love your pies. A laugh escaped her, half sob, half joy. Is that all you love? Not by a long shot, he murmured, leaning in to kiss her gently. But we have time to discover all the rest if you're willing. The courtship that followed was the talk of Piñon. Some gossiped, of course. Vance Quill could have had any woman, they said. Why choose the fat widow from the bakery? but others saw what Lily had seen, the way they looked at each other, the way Vance's step had lightened, the way Hannah's smile had deepened. Through summer and into fall, their Sunday gatherings continued, but now included walks along the creek, picnics with the ranch hands, and quiet evenings on the porch after Lily was asleep. Hannah taught Vance to appreciate the stars again, pointing out constellations her father had shown her as a child. Vance taught Hannah to ride, finding a sturdy horse that could comfortably carry her as they explored the ranch's boundaries. Lily, for her part, was triumphant. "See, Papa, I told you she was perfect," she said one evening as they watched Hannah gather eggs with practiced ease. "You're a smart girl," Vance conceded, "but don't let it go to your head. I might have figured it out eventually." "In 100 years, maybe," Lily giggled. The proposal came on a crisp October evening. Hannah had spent the day helping with the apple harvest from the small orchard on the ranch's eastern edge. They'd made cider and pies, filling the house with sweet aromas that reminded Vance of childhood and hope and home. After Lily went to bed, they sat on the porch swing, a quilt shared between them against the autumn chill. Hannah's head rested comfortably on his shoulder, their hands intertwined. "I've been thinking," Vance said, his heart pounding. "A dangerous pastime," Hannah teased. "Indeed." He shifted to face her. "Hannah, these past months have been the happiest I've known since losing Martha. You've brought joy back into this house, love back into my life." Hannah's eyes widened as she realized where he was heading. "Vance, let me finish," he said gently. "I know there will be talk. There already is. But I don't care what anyone thinks except you and Lily. And Lily, as we know, has been campaigning for this from the start." Hannah laughed softly, tears shining in her eyes. "I love you, Hannah Thompson. Your kindness, your strength, your laugh. The way you see the good in everyone. The way you've embraced this place and its people. I love watching you teach Lily, seeing your hands work dough, feeling your warmth beside me." He took a small box from his pocket. "Will you marry me? Make this house a home again?" Hannah looked at the simple gold band with its small ruby stone, then back at Vance's face. "Are you absolutely certain? Once people know we're engaged, the talk will only get worse." "Let them talk," Vance said firmly. "I know what I want, who I want." "Then yes," Hannah whispered, her face radiant. "Yes, I will marry you, Vance Quill." The news spread quickly through Piñon. Most offered sincere congratulations, especially those who'd benefited from Hannah's generosity or Vance's fair dealings. A few raised eyebrows, but when Sheriff Willis publicly congratulated the couple and announced he'd stand as Vance's best man, the opposition largely quieted. Lily was ecstatic, especially when Hannah asked her to be her attendant at the ceremony. "Does this mean you'll be my new mother?" she asked Hannah. "I could never replace your mother," Hannah answered carefully. "But I would be honored to be your second mother, if you'll have me." Lily's answer was a fierce hug that nearly knocked Hannah off balance. The wedding took place on Thanksgiving Day, 1878, in the small church in Piñon. Hannah wore a deep blue dress that complemented her fair skin, with lace at the collar that Vance later learned she'd added herself. She carried a bouquet of late-blooming wildflowers and pine sprigs gathered by Lily. Vance waited at the altar, more nervous than he'd been facing down the James gang, but when Hannah appeared at the church doors, his doubts vanished. The reception at the Quarter Circle Q was a community affair. Hannah's bakery apprentices had prepared pies and cakes under her direction, while the ranch hands had roasted a whole steer. Music, dancing, and laughter filled the ranch yard well into the evening. "Happy?" Vance asked his bride as they swayed to a slow fiddle tune. "Perfectly," Hannah replied, her head on his chest, "though I still can't quite believe it." "Believe it," he murmured into her hair. "You're stuck with us Quills now." Later, when the guests had gone and Lily was asleep, Vance carried his bride across the threshold of their home. Hannah's cheeks flushed as he set her down in their bedroom, suddenly shy despite the months of courtship. "I know I'm not what most men dream of," she began. Vance silenced her with a gentle kiss. You're exactly what I dream of. Every curve, every laugh line, every part of you." That night, as they discovered each other fully for the first time, Vance found himself grateful for his daughter's persistence and his own awakened heart. Hannah's body was soft and generous, her love fierce and tender by turns. In her arms, he found not just passion, but a profound sense of homecoming. Spring brought new life to the quarter circle queue. The garden Hannah and Lily had planted flourished, now expanded to include vegetables and more herbs. The bakery in town continued under the management of Hannah's apprentice, with Hannah herself making special orders for important occasions. Vance's cattle business thrived, with Hannah's head for figures helping to streamline operations. On a warm May afternoon, exactly a year after they'd replanted Martha's garden, Hannah called Vance and Lily to the porch, where she waited with a special pie and news of her own. "I've made a cherry pie to celebrate," she said, her eyes twinkling. "What's the occasion?" Vance asked, puzzled. Hannah took his hand and placed it on her rounded belly. "By Christmas, there will be another Quill at the table." Vance's face transformed with wonder and joy. "A baby? We're having a baby?" Lily squealed, dancing around them. "I'm going to be a big sister. Can I help name it? Can I help take care of it?" "Of course you can," Hannah assured her, embracing her stepdaughter. "This baby will need its big sister." Vance pulled them both into his arms, his heart too full for words. From loss had come love. From emptiness had come abundance. And it had all started with a little girl who recognized what her father needed before he did himself. "You were right all along," he whispered to Lily. "She does make the best pies." Lily grinned up at him. "And the best mama, too." Hannah's eyes misted as she kissed Lily's forehead, then turned to Vance. "I think we've all found exactly what we needed." In December, as snow dusted the mountains around Piñon, Hannah gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named James Roger Quill. As Vance held his son while Hannah rested, Lily pressed against his side to peer at her new brother. He knew with absolute certainty that life had given him a second chance at happiness, one he'd nearly been too blind to see. "Thank you," he whispered to his daughter. "For what, Papa?" "For seeing what I couldn't. For being brave enough to tell me what I needed to hear." Lily smiled. "That's what family does. We take care of each other." She looked thoughtfully at Hannah, who was waking from her brief rest. "And sometimes, family is who we choose." Vance watched as Hannah held out her arms for their son, her face radiant despite her exhaustion. Love, unexpected, unconventional, but undeniably real, had transformed them all. And as he joined his family on the bed, Vance silently thanked the twist of fate that had brought a generous-hearted widow and her remarkable pies into their lives.